Hi, everybody who is joining us on webinar, who's joining us on Facebook Live. It's great to be here. I'm super excited to give these updates today on what's next post-COVID, where we are at with clinics and with the legal process. So I've got a bunch of questions that you all have already sent in, and I'm just going to jump right to them. Dr. Liebrecht, can you give us an update on the following? You might need a pen. There's a few questions here. Screening, transfers, egg retrievals, what's going on at the clinic for people in Ontario, outside of Ontario. We are ready for your update.
Okay, I'll do the first one and then you'll have to give me the other ones because I didn't write it down. But for screening, now what we're doing, if we were doing let's talk about, first of all, intended parents. So we're still doing the Skype calls or electronic calls remotely, and then they come in for their testing, whatever's required, blood testing, ultrasound, and so on, and follow-up is done by electronic. For the donors, same thing, electronic consultations, and then once they've done that and we've sort of assessed them electronically, then we have them come in for their physical examination, ultrasound, blood test, urine test for toxicology, as we always have done, and therefore they can only need to be in the clinic for a very short time. In terms of screening surrogates, same thing, although we have some surrogates, of course, that are from other provinces, and now we've started having them come to Ontario to be screened if they're able to. And we can do that after they've had their remote consultation. So everything is done here. And there is, I think, only one province, as we were just speaking about, I think it's New Brunswick, which requires them to quarantine when they go home. So unless they're able to do that, we'll try in that particular province. Hopefully it will change soon to do the screening in their own province. Second was?
For embryo transfers and egg retrievals, are those starting soon? Are they going on now? Where are we with that?
Great question. So yes, we've started now with getting all the donors ready for their egg retrievals, and we've started stimulating them already. We're doing it in a very measured way, slowly, so there may be a bit of delays just getting things going. We can only do so many procedures in a day for social distancing to make sure that everything is safe. We can't allow people to have a companion in the OR at the time of retrievals just because of the number of people allowed in the clinic, but they can come and pick them up after their retrieval. Same thing for transfers of surrogates. We're very excited to be starting those, and we've already done some already. So we're doing transfers of embryos that have already been made prior to the COVID crisis to be able to put them in and start hopefully getting new pregnancies now. So we're very excited about that as well. And then for intended parents who are using a surrogate and doing their own retrieval, of course, we can start doing that as well.
Excellent, thank you. One other question, I know that in April when the OHIP funding was released, clinics were closed. Is OHIP funding still a thing given COVID and all of the other sort of health stuff going on in the province of Ontario?
Yes, the funding is just as every year. It's just we couldn't use it, obviously, on the April 1st date when it first came back into play for this year. But we have all the funding we had for last year. We just have to do it in a shorter time. But we're able to start, and we've already started many funded cycles already.
Excellent. And the follow-up question to that is, if there were people watching this Facebook Live and they were interested in funding, is funding at your clinic all used up or all allocated, or would there be the opportunity for people to reach out to the clinic to see if that's possible?
We definitely have funding, and we have just as much as we did last year. We're the largest clinic in Ontario, and we have upwards of the most funding, we believe, in the province, although we don't know other people's funding. It's private, but we do think we do. So yes, we definitely have room for people to have funded cycles. There is a limit, but I think we did use up our funding around December or early January last year. We think it'll go more into February, March, towards the end of the funding cycle, and then be back up and running back in next April. So funding is available definitely for, and we do prioritize cancer patients, and then our second on our priority is the women who are about to turn 43. That's a priority as well. But the third party in our clinic, actually, unlike any other clinic I know of in Canada, we prioritize third party patients for funding, because we know that there's a limited time. They have a donor, they have a surrogate, they need to get going. So their funding is prioritized among all of our patients.
Excellent, thank you. Jordan, are there any other questions for Dr. Liebrecht before I move on to Cindy in our live feed on Facebook? That is likely a no.
I have a question, actually, if I may. In our last COVID update, Dr. Liebrecht, you also spoke of developing sperm kits that you could send to our international clients. Has that been happening yet?
I'm really glad you asked that, Cindy. Actually, today we're testing out our kit. This is a very exciting thing that we're doing now, because the problem is when somebody has to come from international, say from France or Germany, if they can even come, they have to then be quarantined for 2 weeks before we can even see them. And then in many countries, you have to be quarantined when you get back. That's a whole month. So that's really not feasible for many people. They lose so much time of work. So what we're doing now is we developed a kit, and we're just testing out today. It's actually timely that you asked this, so that we can send this tank to the person. They can do their own sample in their own privacy of their home. They can put the sample in, we'll give them instructions of how to do it, and they just ship it back to us. So they do not have to fly all the way to Canada in this very difficult time. And we hope that we'll be able to get a lot of people going quickly by using these really amazing kits. And we're actually so excited about it, because we're probably the only ones in the world that are doing this right now, or doing this project. And we're actually excited about actually writing it up as a research project to look at how well this is working for our patients who are international. And we're actually sending the kits in the next couple of days to people who have volunteered to give samples, and we're going to have them shipped back, and we're going to test them to make sure everything's good before we send it out to patients. So we hope in the next week or two we'll have everything ready to go.
That's very exciting.
That's exciting. That's fantastic news, and we'll definitely be letting our clients know, and people watching this video, if this is something you hadn't thought about and you were concerned you'd have to put your journey on hold because you couldn't get to Canada to leave your sample, please reach out to us at CFC or directly to Create, and we'll be happy to coordinate and organize this piece for you.
Just so you know, one more thing I should add, I just forgot to mention. We also will be sending a blood kit because we require certain blood tests for the government regulations. So you'll have to get your blood taken around the same time as you get your sperm produced for sending back. So I just forgot to mention that, but it is an important little part of that.
So everybody has to go to a clinic to do this?
No, we can do this at home, only blood, just a blood taking, not a clinic.
And to follow up on that, what about embryos? Are you able to obtain embryos from outside clinics?
Yes, so we're now starting to ship embryos from outside clinics, as long as that country allows it to be happening in their country with the shipping regulations, but we're able to receive embryos from anywhere in the world at this point.
Terrific.
Fantastic, fantastic. Cindy, if you could give us an update on clients coming into Canada for the birth of their children, as well as any other sort of legal updates, that would be fantastic.
Sure. So let's start with the immigration aspect of it. When last we spoke, Immigration Canada had just created this process for us. There's a team that are allocated to dealing with applications for authorization. So these would apply to anybody in foreign countries, not the US, because Americans are not banned from traveling in Canada. So I'll talk about that separately. But all the European, Australian clients that we have, need an application to be sent to this address at Immigration Canada, and then they receive an authorization letter that they take when they board to show that they can come into the country. Most people have been retaining the services of Green and Spiegel. That was the immigration firm that I spoke of on our last webinar that I brought into this process. They're a fabulous firm, and his team, Stephen Green's team with Alexandra Cole, are processing those applications routinely for clients. I do some for my office, for my clients as well, and everybody has received their letters. But people, as I understand it, none of my colleagues have had any issues with their clients coming into the country. I've not heard any problems. Everyone who has applied has been granted a letter and allowed to be in the country well before the birth of their babies. As Dr. Liebrack mentioned, don't forget there's still a 2-week quarantine, so you need to apply early. And we still see some babies come early, so we want you coming here, Leah. You still like 35 weeks, right?
5 weeks, absolutely.
I sometimes ask earlier just because I'm super cautious about that, but at least 35 weeks, please, if you can. We know it's hard. It's hard to get away from work and families, but this is really important. If anyone has been following the news of other countries dealing with this, you will see how absolutely devastating that is to see the babies, images of them in the Ukraine and elsewhere. Canada has not let this happen to those Canadian babies, so please take advantage of that and apply and get here on time. Now, with the Americans, it's different. The Americans are not actually caught in the ban. There is an exemption. Americans are allowed into the country, but still only for essential travel. And of course, everyone must be COVID-free to get into the country. So Americans have to prove essential travel, which is similar to what we do for the other foreigners in any event, but they don't need the formal letter, although it would be helpful. But at least I would absolutely recommend that no American try to do this on their own. You need to have your lawyer's assistance, and even reach out to Green and Spiegel to get a proper letter explaining what the essential travel is. Surrogacy can be considered as such, but you need evidence of it. So we need the surrogacy agreement. We need a letter from your clinic, which Dr. Liebrack's staff have been very busy sending out, saying there is a surrogacy birth happening, and a letter from the doctor or midwife treating the surrogate, which Leah, you've been so busy at CFC getting those ready for us. At the second our office asks for one, we're getting them sent very quickly. We need your travel plans. It's really important for everyone to have their itinerary, passports. We're even asking for the surrogate's passport. And we send all of that. And if you are an American, you bring all of that with you. And it's still a bit tricky because you're at the whim of a border official when you arrive, but armed with all of that and your lawyer knowing when you're coming over, you should be able to get in.
Excellent, thank you. Can you just maybe update people on when you're suggesting to do the legal contracts now that we're sort of seeing, you know, a bit of breathing room in terms of getting surrogates screened in person or remotely?
Yeah, I think we can go back to the way it was when we waited for screening to be complete. We had gone through a period of time for about a month or maybe a bit longer where we started doing contracts in advance of screening to assist with the backlog that we thought the clinics would have. And Dr. Liebrack, now that you're back to schedule, there doesn't seem to be an issue with backlog from what I understand. We can go back to that safer process where we plan for screening. We've also found that even when we did go ahead to do the contract in advance, it was a really good idea to have the intended parents reach out to the surrogate, or for the lawyer for the surrogate to reach out and make sure she was in a position to find 2 hours during her crazy day right now to sit with a lawyer and go over a contract in a way that she could actually think about it without children crawling all over her, like many of us are experiencing working at home or being at home with school-age children. And so with the little bit of time that we have, I think it's a good idea, you know, to wait and make sure the surrogate's ready to proceed. and that the screening has been done.
Absolutely. So I'll give my update. Our agency has put in place some controls in order to ensure the safety of all of our donors and surrogates. And so what that looks like, and if you're with another agency and you happen to follow upon this video, I'm sure your agency is doing the same thing. And so in terms of interprovincial travel, we are having surrogates are traveling for treatment. And what we're doing is we're just ensuring, the least amount of contact possible. So we're flying surrogates on the least traveled travel path. We're having a car service pick her up from the airport. We're having all of our surrogates and donors stay at one particular hotel, which is the Holiday Inn. It's very close to Create. And we chose that hotel because their COVID policy made the most sense for us. They have locked their doors to the outside public. They have breakfast available, not in a restaurant, but at the desk. You can go and pick up a continental breakfast. They have a meal delivery. However, they do not let the Uber Eats drivers into the building. You have to meet them downstairs. And that's to ensure that there isn't this opportunity for contact with the outside world. We want to keep you just, in as much bubble wrap as possible. So you'll pick up your food, you'll be in your room, and the same thing, the car service will pick you up and take you back to the airport for your travel home. And, in terms of a support person can't be at the clinic. So many surrogates and donors will be traveling alone. But I can tell you this, I've spoken to many of the nurses at Create, and I've shared with them the concern about, these women being there alone, and many of them sort of not having traveled to a large center before, and and just needing that extra support. And with Dr. Liebrecht's support and the nurses, there will always be someone there with you if you're a surrogate or a donor. If you're an intended parent and you're just nervous about your surrogate being alone, there will be someone there with her. And we want you to know that, we are pressing forward, not to rush, not to, do anything other than keep hope going. And so when a surrogate reaches out to us and she says, I'm ready, I'm in a healthy, low risk category, I've spoken to my family doctor about traveling, he or she supports me, this is what I want to put in place, this is what I need to put in place, we support that. And we really want to honor each person's ability. And some women are saying, hey, you know what? I need to wait a few months. I really want to see, what COVID looks like in a couple of months. For myself, I live on Vancouver Island. We've had one case in 7 days. So, we're in a different position here than people are in other parts of the country. And so we really value that. So with all of these exciting updates, and yes, we can do an embryo transfer in the imminent future. If that for you doesn't sit, then that's okay. And, we will continue to work with you. Dr. Liebrecht will speak to you about preventative measures. So, during this lockdown stage, you don't end up pregnant on your own, because of course that's always a concern for me. We will take every precaution. We will support what works for you. But Create is open. The nurses will be there to hold your hand and offer support. Dr. Liebrecht has created this social distancing, physical distancing plan within the clinic. And so, it really all makes sense, but it really needs to make sense to you as well. And that's really my update from an agency perspective. Cindy, Dr. Liebrecht, do you guys have any other updates?
If I could add to that from the contract perspective, based on what you've just said, Leah, which is so reasonable and makes so much sense in the circumstances, I would recommend that intended parents and surrogates both reach out to their lawyers and the agency as well to say, this is what we need at this time, and communicate with each other to make sure that everybody is feeling comfortable moving forward. There are some logistical concerns, such as whether there will be any type of quarantine. Or at this point, as we said, there's only one province, but if that changes, what is the cost of airfare? Does everyone still need a companion to fly across the country with the cost of airfare and things of that nature? But no one should feel pressure to be uncomfortable moving into us. So reach out. You have always the advice of a lawyer, always confidential to help you work it out. You've got great support with CFC, and we'll get it done.
Hi everyone, Jordan here. My apologies. I was stuck on mute earlier. We have a few questions coming in through Facebook. An intended parent sent a message saying that they're in the stage of looking for a surrogate, and they were supposed to come to Canada this past April, but because of COVID-19, their trip got delayed. Is there any possibility of them still coming over, or is that to be determined at a later time?
I would say that that would not be considered an essential purpose for traveling into Canada today. And there is a 2-week quarantine. So speaking with the agency to get your profile done, and Leah, you know, you could continue from that in terms of how you're doing matching right now.
Absolutely. If you are an intended parent, a surrogate, or a donor watching this live video, we would love to connect with you. We would love to share our program with you and really talk you through the next steps, because for many people, there's a great deal of work that goes into this before matching with a surrogate, and that is, you know, speaking with a lawyer in your jurisdiction, speaking with a lawyer in Canada, speaking with Dr. Librak about your health and your health history, providing him some details so he can help plan the next steps for you in terms of moving forward with the journey.
A few of the other questions are from others who joined us partway through. Dr. Librak, I believe you mentioned this already, but could you confirm that the clinic has started to get going and things are opening up and the process is moving forward?
Yes, we have, and I've already mentioned that we've started doing egg retrievals on intended parents who are using their own eggs, or egg donors. We're starting to do embryo transfers for surrogates. We've already done some already, and we have donors already started on their cycles. We are being very careful. We're doing it in a measured way. We can only do so many procedures per day. We can only start so many cycles, so there is a bit of a delay because of that. In addition, we're doing some really important things in protecting people when they come to the clinic. One of them is scheduling. So they only come on a schedule. You can't arrive too early or we won't be able to let you in the clinic. You have to come on time. And if you come late, it can make a real problem for other patients because you're coming in on their time. So we want to, in a way, there's sort of a benefit for some of our patients because they're getting into the clinic, seeing a doctor, having their procedure, and getting out as quickly as possible. So they're actually much less waiting time for people as a consequence of this. But it's important because we need to make sure only so many people are in the clinic at one time, and we have to protect both our staff and our patients. But yes, we are starting. We're very excited about it, and we're very excited to restart helping people have children and doing it in the safest way possible.
You raised something that made me think of going back to the immigration system, if I may, which is the passport office and private meetings. I didn't speak to the issue of how you get home again as an international parent with your baby. So as always, every Canadian baby born here is automatically Canadian. So that baby is entitled to a Canadian passport, and the process used to be that you go to the passport office once you had your birth certificate, and you'd pull a number off the roller, and you had number 420 and they were calling number 6, and you didn't have enough diapers or formula and you were there for hours. So now, so much better. As soon as we know the birth is registered, we have an email at Immigration and Citizenship, which is in charge of passports as well. Within a day, an individual calls us with their cell phone number to give to you, the intended parent, the new parent, and you create your own private appointment at the local passport office in the closest city that you are in. So for the Toronto area, they're asking, for example, that you go out near the airport. London is a big city center here. Ottawa, they're all open. And you have a private appointment. And I've had clients receive passports in as little as 2.5 hours after that appointment. So my big question for Immigration Canada is going to be, can we keep this magnificent process after? And I hate to ask you, Dr. Librak, can we have private appointments after?
What's that? Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Keep going with private appointments at the clinic after.
We're gonna have to do it for a long time, but everybody must arrive with a mask on, or we have masks for people. So when you're here, you also get screened at the door. You have your temperature taken, and you also get a sticker that says you've been screened for that particular day. And every time you come to the clinic, you're screened. So we're trying to be extremely careful about patients entering our clinic.
And people should bring masks because when they're going outside in Toronto, they should bring their masks too.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Dr. Liebrecht from the Create Fertility Clinic and Cindy Wasser from Hope Springs Fertility Law. It's always great to catch up. Those of you watching us on Facebook Live, any other questions, please feel free to send them to the page, and I will forward them on to the appropriate people. And yeah, thank you, everyone. I know we're still in this tricky time. Whenever you can, stay home, stay safe, wear a mask when you can't socially distance. Be like BC, be like Vancouver Island. I will brag one more time, one case, and I think it's been 7 days. We've lost track because it's just not an issue here. So either be like us or move here because it's amazing and beautiful. So we will talk to all of you soon and have a great rest of your Monday.
Thank you. Thank you, Leah. Thank you, Jordan.
Bye, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.